Should we
Yes,
start
go
right
go
ahead?
for it. Yes.
Yofi. So let me first see if I can get to see everybody. It's- Okay, so whoever I can see, I'm glad to see you, and whoever I can see just your name. So I'm glad to see you too. Uh, I'm happy to be able to participate. It's a time that's very pressed for everybody, but it's a good kind of press. You know, that's the best thing. Coming out of Mitzrayim, coming out of Egypt, so there's always a lot to do, Baruch Hashem, and it's good. It's the best kind of way to go into the Chag, right? It's like the preparation. The preparation is a sign of just how much kedusha is waiting because you have to prepare for it so thoroughly. So I wish everybody, before we even start, happy preparations, joyous preparations, uplifting preparations and uplifting and joyous Chag. So Leah Aroni asked me if I would participate in talking about today Achdus. And I guess it's because it's election day, And my husband always says, there's a mitzvah to do bachiras every day. There's a mitzvah to do elections every day. The Torah says, v'chata v'chaim. V'chata v'chaim, and you shall choose life. Meaning, bechira, the application of one's self to making choices to connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu is something that's with us every minute of every day. So he likes to joke always before election time, around election time, that it's v'chata v'chaim is a mitzvah every day, bechiras every day, and so the choice of making an event of so many different teachers coming together to talk about Achdus today is of course because we have a world in which people like to separate into miflagot. We have a whole world full of different parties. Everybody's got it's like a whole different world of separation. We're in the world of separation, Alma de Peruda. And in the world of separation, which is the nature of the world in which we live, the unrectified world, it's called Alma de Peruda, the world of separation, of division. So we are much more attracted to the things that divide us than we are drawn to the things that unite us. And that's the nature of this world. You have to work here to be connected to the Alma de Yehuda, to be connected to the world of unity. The world of unity is not a prosaic concept. The world of unity is a very lofty concept. Alma de Yehuda is to be always seeking the state of discovering the oneness not only between ourselves and other Jews, but also between all that exists and its source in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Alma de Yehuda, the world of Yichud, of unification. That's the goal of every single bit of every single Jew's work that we do in this world every single day. So it manifests itself on many levels. We have Yehuda, Achdus, that we try and make when we make every single bracha that we make. You take a drink of water. Before you take a drink of water, so you're binding up your physical experience with your transcendent awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's called making Achdus. And when you have an opportunity to reconcile with a fellow Jew or to express your love for a fellow Jew, or for all that exists, but we'll start with the Jewish people because that's really where we have to begin. So those opportunities abound all day, every day. And I always have the choice whether I want to live in the world of Peruda or the world of Yehuda. Do I want to focus on the things that keep me distant and apart and separated from other people, from other Yidden, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from other parts of myself, because it all comes down to the same thing? Or am I seeking the places in which we are bound together? Now, the places in which we're bound together, because we live in a still unrectified world. So the places in which we are bound together, where people feel naturally like they're bound together, are around, common interests. It can be very pragmatic, right? The things that draw people together. It could be, something as simple as even, like aesthetics, or even though the aesthetics in art is not simple, truly, but there are different chords that draw people together and make them feel like they have affinity for one another. And all of the various chords that we could rely upon, there can be political affiliations, there can be socioeconomic affiliations, there can be affiliations and places of unity having to do with your background or the work that you do. There are so many different ways in which people discover points of commonality, but all of them are very, very chitzoni. All of them in the end are very external, because there has to be something that is a point of unity that can exist across the entire spectrum of the Jewish people. Because otherwise we would not have this idea of Achdut at all, that there's such a thing as coming to Sinai, that you could come together like one person with one heart. Like how could you do that if the only thing that can tie you together is you're a person who has a kind of right-leaning political sensibility, or you've got, your particular interest in the thing that drives you is that you want to clean up the beaches from all of the tar and all of that terrible zephet that's that all of that oil that's that messed up the beaches. All those points of potential commonality are, glimmers of possibility, but they wind up being very external in the end, because there has to be some point of potential unity that I don't know if we could call it higher or deeper, whatever. We always get caught with that language of, is it a higher place of unity or is it a deeper place? And whether we talk about higher or more inward, in the end, it comes down to the same thing. So there has to be something else. So what is this something else? Meaning, how does the Torah define? The Torah has to define for us, what is this place of unity? Where is it possible to access it? How do we access it? Now, when Leah asked me what I'm going to teach about, I don't know if it's on the flyer or not. I think I saw the flyer. Maybe it just had the names. So what do you want to teach about? I said, simple, Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael. And after, it was like a but moment of, wait, did you mean it like the pun? Like, is that meant to be a pun? Like Knesset Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, what? I said, Knesset Yisrael is a term that's used all over our holy works to describe what appears on the surface to be two very, very different things. So on the one hand, Knesset Yisrael means the collectivity of the Jewish people. In fact, it's such a broad term that it generally is used to mean the collective soul of the Jewish people, which means all manifestations of all of the souls of the Jewish people throughout all time, from the beginning of time until the end of time. Since the beginning of the drawing out and the drawing down of the souls of the Jewish people until after Mashiach comes, Knesset Yisrael is that collectivity. But we also use the term to talk about the Shechina Kedusha, to talk about the revealed presence of Hashem in the world. And when you're familiar with the way the term is used in the deeper works, so you start to see that what appear to be two very different terms, two different usages, it's not really very different. It's really one word to talk about one thing, just in two different ways. Now, that's a hard concept maybe to wrap our heads around. Like we say, Knesset Yisrael, we're talking about the Shechina on the one hand. And the Shechina is Hashem. The Shechina is the revealed presence of Hashem. And we talk about Knesset Yisrael to mean the collective soul of the Jewish people. And those two entities or those two bodies don't appear to be the same thing. But when we start to look a little deeper, we find that another way of talking about individual souls of the Jewish people, root souls of the Jewish people, are called Evarei HaShechina, the limbs of the Shechina. Limbs in terms of arms and legs and toes and eyes and ears, limbs of the Shechina. So limbs of the Shechina, Evarei HaShechina, that's a different way to think about each other. Meaning, if individual souls are called Evarei HaShechina, individual souls are called limbs of the Shechina, of Hashem's presence. Articulations, what are limbs? Limbs are means through which the will is articulated, right? That's what limbs are. Limbs are your means of articulation. So you have what we call 248 means of articulation, different channels or vessels or vehicles through which your unified will is expressed and gets accomplished in the world, those are called yulims. Those are called evarim. Now, each of the individual souls of the Jewish people are called me'evarei Shechina, from among the limbs of the Shechina. And we start to see how the two uses of Knesset Yisrael really come together. How do we find that Hashem's presence is manifest in the world? What's the highest manifestation of Hashem's presence in the world? You know, you could go wake up in the morning and look up at the sky, right? Look at the blue of the sky and be filled with Yiras Shamayim, and you can have a sense of the presence of Hashem in the world. And that's true. That's real. That's genuine, right? That the heavens are speaking Hashem's glory. It's all true. Hashem's glory is called the Shechina Kedusha. You have a sense. But it's like that old question that's not a question. Like if a tree falls in the forest, you know what they always say? If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? If there's a glorious sky that reveals the glory of God, but there's no consciousness to reflect upon it and then say, Marabu Masach Hashem, is it called a revelation? So individual Jews are pockets of individual consciousness that through our interaction with the world, with Hashem's world, and everything that occurs here, are the means through which Hashem's presence becomes manifest in the world. Because if he didn't have the agency of our individual consciousness, so ki'ilu kavyachol, it's all for naught. It's as if no matter how glorious the universe is, it's not enough that the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, that they can reflect upon the glory of God's universe. Once individuated consciousness in different packages called souls and bodies that are called Evarei Shechina, limbs of the Shechina, because each individual consciousness has its own unique way of coming to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu here in this world and to make this known. Not only to know, but to make known, like it says in the Zohar Kadosh. To know, to be known, and to make known. So all of us have that in common, meaning we're all part of a single collective spiritual entity whose purpose is to come to know Hashem in the world. And just like the Evarei HaGuf, just like the body itself has all of its different parts and all of its different systems, they are interlocking, they all are synergistic, they work together, they are quite different from each other. There is a vast difference between, let's say, the functioning of the eye and the functioning of the left pinky toenail, right? They are different from each other, but they're part of a single totality. And when this totality is operative in a healthy way, in a recognition that it's part of a single system, so then we can say that the collectivity Knesset Yisrael is in good health, and the Shekhinah is being revealed in the world, and Hashem's presence is something that's accessible, and that is the unity that unifies all of us. Because let's say you could have, right, you have a right hand, your right hand has, all of its constituent parts, right? So you could say, well, the right hand feels very unified with itself, right? Because all those constituent parts, all those bits and pieces, every cell, every bit of tissue, all of its vessels, all of it, every part of it. So it's all part of this thing called my right hand. So it feels unified with itself. But if it were to feel not unified with my left hand, so we'd say that's a kind of psychosis. That's a psychosis, to feel a split between the various parts of the self, that they're not part of a single organic whole. And the Gemara even talks about it in the Yerushalmi and in Gemara Nidorim as a way of talking about it's a way of explaining the pasuk, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you shall love your fellow Jews yourself. It says, Hey chavida, havimkati kulpa dumachat sakina liyadoi, tachzor timcha liyadei. if a person took a knife and they were cutting a piece of fruit, and by accident they slipped and they sliced the finger, chas v'shalom. With the right hand they were holding a knife, and the left hand they were holding the fruit, and they, excuse me, it's allergy season, so the sneezes are like super cathartic. Okay,
God bless you.
Thank you, Bukhati. So if a person would take a knife with the right hand and then hold the fruit in the left hand, and then they were to slice the fruit, and in slicing the fruit, chas v'shalom, they managed to hurt themselves and cut the finger, on the left hand. The Gemara then asks, would they then pick up the knife in anger with the left hand and go and strike the right hand? Meaning, would the left hand take vengeance on the right hand to revenge itself against the terrible deed that the right hand had done to it? Of course not. Now, the Gemara uses this, the Yerushalmi uses this as an example of a kind of, it's like a spiritual psychosis, right? Because it's not talking about hands, it's talking about Eivarei Shechina. It's talking about the ways in which we relate to each other. So where does it stem from that the left hand, if such a thing could happen, that the left hand would then pick up the knife and slice at the right hand in a desire to take revenge for having received, an accidental slight or a slip, right? So the Gemara the Talmud using such a very stark example as a way of saying to us, well, that's clearly crazy. That's just insane. That's a sign of insanity. That there should be such a disassociation between two parts of the single body. So when we find ourselves as a people in that state of disunity, where we do find that we strike at each other, and we do find that we feel so disassociated and subdivided from one another. So we look at it and we say, oh, this is the psychosis of the Jewish people in exile. And the question is, so how are we supposed to heal it? It's not enough to be able to diagnose it and say, okay, this is terrible, and it can't be like this. But there has to be some means to be able to heal it. We have to be able to come away from this. So let's go back to those two hands. Those two hands, why could the left hand feel like it's such a separate entity? Where does that come from? Because the unifying principle, which the Torah calls, right, which it's not the Torah, it's Chazal's explanation of the pasuk V'yichan, that the Jewish people camped. It uses the singular form when we camped at Sinai, Vayichan Sham, that we camped there. It says as if we were Ki ish echad b'lev echad. The pasuk only says Vayichan, that we camped in the singular form, and it's talking about a whole people. Now it's interesting. Whole nations are often spoken about in the singular. We're often spoken about in the singular. And it's not unusual to have a singular usage. So when the sages pointed out, they're pointing out that this Vayichan is different, that this Vayichan specifically means Ki ish echad b'lev echad, meaning it's not some kind of a grammatical nicety that could be used in other contexts, but it means here specifically Ki ish echad b'lev echad, like one person with a single heart. Now, a single heart, what does it mean to have a single heart? What is a unified heart? What does it mean to have a heart? Like it comes down in the end, the Achdut and the unity, right, relies on having this Lev Echad. But what is the Lev Echad, and where are we supposed to get it? How did we have it for Sinai? This Lev Echad, this single Lev. So we had a great advantage. One of the great advantages that we had in that generation was we had Moshe. So because we had a Moshe, we had a single unifying principle, which is not always called, Moshe is not always called Lev, it's called Das. A single unifying a unified, active will and mind and heart within the Jewish people to kind of bind us together. But it's not as though Moshe Rabbeinu had an easy way with us afterwards. It wasn't always such a smooth way afterwards. But at Sinai, when we were preparing to receive the Torah, and this soon after Yetzias Mitzrayim, so we were in a state of Ki Ish Echad B'Lev Echad, which has partially to do with the fact that we had such a great leader. And it's the beginning. We're almost we're almost at the midpoint of the month of Nisan. But Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Rosh Hashanah Lamlachim. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is one of the 4 Rosh Hashanahs of the year. It's one of the 4 New Years of the year, and the and Rosh Hashanah Lamlachim means every year the Jewish people are judged whether we're going to be worthy of this year having a leader who's a leader like Moshe Rabbeinu. Will we be zoche? Will we merit it? Because the principle of Jewish leadership is exceedingly important. It's the organizing and unifying principle for all of the Evarim of Knesset Yisrael is with a single das and a single lev. And so with a single das and a single lev. And so we have, the day was a big day, Rosh Hashanah, Lamlachim, the New Year of Kings, of Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And it was a big day. It was a big day for tefillah, for prayer, that this year we should merit really a proper Jewish leadership, genuine Jewish leadership. And the genuine Jewish leadership, in the end, is leadership that reveals to us the place in which we're unified, that reveals to us that we are from Evarei Shechina, that reveals to us that we are all utterly different, all at the root part of a single collectivity, and each of us are just different functional parts that are united in our essential spiritual DNA, if you want to call it like that, because the cells of the left toenail, well, not the nail bed, let's leave the toenail for now, but we'll say the cells, the live cells in the body, whether it's down to the left toe or whether it's the cells that are in the brain. So they have total different functional aspects to them. And it's embedded within them that they are going to be totally different from each other. And they are not supposed to think, they are not supposed to operate as if they are not exactly what they are and nothing else. That's also a kind of psychosis, or that's a root of very severe illnesses in the body, is when the cells, chas v'shalom, that they think that there's something that they're not. If a cell thinks that it's something that it's not, so it reproduces in a way that is damaging to the body. If it thinks that it's something that it's not, it can.
I don't know how to use these things. It's so annoying.
Opa.
Just press stop for a second on your cell phone.
Elisheva, you have to mute yourself.
Use mine?
So frustrating.
Whoever, Devora, you have here someone who needs to be muted. Okay. So, not that I mind, but most people usually don't want their family stuff online. Okay. So we have so to reveal to us that that Evarei Shechina means that we are utterly different from each other. You don't have any two cells that are exactly the same, like even within one organ, even within one part of the body, each one is totally individuated. It's not meant to be its fellow. It's not meant to be anything other than exactly what it is. At the same time, it is part of a single collectivity that has a single organizing principle behind it, which we call Lev Echad, which is called the Das Echad, which is called the Ratzon Echad. That's the unified will, the unified heart, the unified mind. Or like on the physical basis within the body, it's like that's the code, that's the code that's embedded within every single cell. Each cell both knows what it should be. When I say know, it means it's in information, it's within it. It is part of itself. So it is part within itself, it's encoded with what it needs to be, and also it's part of something much bigger than itself. that and that it's just a small part of something much bigger than itself. And that's true for every single individual body. So when we say to be unified, so we're looking for a unity that's like the unity of the body. And it's very simple. We have the unity of the body is our is the best example that we have of a highly complex, wondrous entity that has subdivisions and subparts that are so utterly different from one another, and they are not meant to be the same, not at all, and they still need to be completely unified under a single organizing principle. And I'm not talking about chas v'shalom, it's election day, but I don't mean politically. I'm not talking about politics, but the organization of people, right? That's the ultimate definition, right? The body politic, the political entity is about the organization of people in what's called the body politic, a functioning collectivity that takes into account the diversity of its individual parts. So, we are very far away from this, and we must get closer to this. We must be able to look upon each other like the Baal HaTanya teaches us right at the beginning of Sefer Tanya. We have to begin to learn to look at each other in the way of, just like I look at my hands and I look at my feet, I look at my heart and I look at my eyes, I look at my ears and every single part of myself, recognizing that every single part of myself is utterly different one part from the other, but the totality of myself is inclusive of all of it. And Klal Yisrael is inclusive of all of it. Klal Yisrael, the collectivity, Knesset Yisrael, it's bigger than Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is like talking about what we are right now. And Knesset Yisrael is all that we could be. It's all that we ever were. It's all that we are right now. It's all that we will be. Knesset Yisrael is the fullest expression when it's healthy, right? In our healthy spiritual state, where every single part is being fully itself and being fully unified with the rest of the collectivity, and everyone driven by a single desire to reveal godliness in the world. And everyone will do it in totally different ways. And that's just like the body reveals its light in totally different ways, one organ and one part, each one from the other, totally different. The lungs are not the kidneys, are not the reproductive organs, are not the heart, are not the eyes, are not the ears, are not the fingernails. They are all utterly different from one another, and chas v'shalom they should ever be the same, because they cannot be, because they would not be completion if they would be the same. And so even though we talk about this endlessly, and the Chofetz Chaim has his mashal about it, but it is just, the healing is just to be able to look at my fellow Jew and see, Marabu Masecha Hashem, כמו שדעותיהם שונות, כך פרצופיהם שונות, זו מזו, כמו פרצופיהם שונות, זו מזו, כך דעותיהם. Just like everyone's face is a whole individual, it's a map of completely, individual territory. It's like a whole world. Every person is a whole world. So too, their das. And when we talk about das, it doesn't mean their opinion. When we talk about das de kedusha, we're not talking about people's opinions. We're talking about the unique way in which one's consciousness was created, which is utterly unique. It's never to be repeated. It is a uniquely organized consciousness to reveal godliness in the world. That's what das is. And we require the das of every single individual Jew. Every single individual Jew throughout all time, all of those individual channels of das are absolutely necessary. And every single one of them must be revealed in the world. That's why it's so important, every generation, from generation to generation, that all of these points of das should be revealed. So we say, but not everybody's focused on revealing godliness in the world. Everybody will be focused on revealing godliness in the world. And everyone is also in ways that we don't quite understand just yet. And that's also true. Meaning to be able to have, to be in a state of unity when I meet my fellow Jew, and the thing that drives them, the thing that animates them, the thing that they're so driven by is, I don't know, I said before, like going and helping out on cleaning the beach. And this is the thing that's driving them. I can't belittle that. How can I belittle it? I don't even understand what its holy use is yet. And maybe I understand, I can understand physically there's a holy use there, but I don't understand yet spiritually What that das de kedusha is coming to reveal in the world, I don't yet know. If it's not revealed yet to the person, at the very least, I have to realize for myself every bit of individual consciousness among the Jewish people, which is also means throughout the rest of the world, but we focus on the Jewish people, we focus inward first. We have to first work on ourselves. And at the very least, I should be able to see this person, the thing that drives them, the thing that the issue that is they're so passionate about, it seems to me so insignificant. And by being mezalzel, by dismissing this, I'm dismissing their das, and I'm dismissing the unique channel that they have to offer to the world to reveal godliness in the world. And you say, but maybe they're not revealing godliness right now in the world, not yet, or not yet in a way that is understood to them, or to me, or to others. But that their das is vital, it's important, because if it wasn't vital and important, Hashem would not have brought it down to the world. And so I feel, this is my own conviction, that the key to entering into the Alma de Yehuda, in such an Alma de Peruda that we live in such a divided world. So the very first place where I can begin is to recognize every individual bit of das is part of the Evarei Shechina. Every single Jew with his or her own individual opinion and way of seeing things and understanding things is something that is important. And it's not a kind of moral relativism, which everyone is so terribly afraid of. Oh, I'm giving justification, giboy to people who have all kinds of ideas that I don't agree with. Who said you have to agree with them? You have to go deeper. We must go deeper. We must see things more deeply. We must see things with different eyes. When you meet somebody and you see the thing that drives them is something you disagree with, go deeper and say, but what is really driving them? What do they really care about? What is the thing that really, what's the animating force for them? And you're going to be able to find a point of unity with them because it exists there with them. If the other person is concerned with their individual liberty, yes? And you say, I'm a person, I want to serve God. What does individual liberty have to do with me? That's not what I'm thinking about. That's not what drives me. I think they're wrong. Would you think there's something wrong with individual liberty? You believe in individual liberty. You're committed to individual liberty. It's just that the way that you find your liberty is in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's we have endless means available to us to it's like my husband used to touch up the other person. To use our great powers of analysis and critique to be able to come to new understanding, deeper understandings about what the other person, what is inside of the other person, the holiness that's inside of the other person, the place in which they are, their nature of being of the Evarei Shechina, of the holy limbs of the Shechina, is manifesting itself, not to any lesser degree, and perhaps to much greater degrees than my own. And then it will be easy to be in a state of unity, because all the things that appear to be dividing us, they're just the difference between right hand and left hand. And if a person doesn't have a right hand and a left hand, they're not called complete. And if a person is missing even a little bit of the toenail, of the left small toenail, so they're not complete. We cannot afford to be mevater. We cannot afford to waive any individual das of any Jew. Because if Hashem saw fit to draw all of these points of individual consciousness down into the world, it's for a reason. And it's for the completion, and it's necessary and vital. And so I can, that's the best thing I can say is that we have always to bear it in mind that the other person's das is important. The other person's individual consciousness, what they're doing in the world is so important, because if not, they wouldn't be here. And I'm not complete without them. And I'm only part of something bigger than myself. And I'm no different from them. And I'm no different from anybody else. We're all just different cells of this big collective body called Knesset Yisrael, with a single objective, which is to reveal godliness in the world, whether we realize it or don't realize it. And Be'ezras Hashem, the process will only expand. And as we value one another and come into a greater understanding of the deeper unity that draws together Klal Yisrael, that is at the heart, the heart and soul of Knesset Yisrael, when we see it more and more clearly, And when we activate our ability to be in a state of greater unity, we'll see that we come closer and closer to the Geula. Because we do it now. We're not waiting for someone to come and save us. We must do it now. And all the places where we get into potential conflict with each other, like the whole world is full of so much contention. It's so contentious. Everybody's so sensitive. Everybody's on tenterhooks, everybody's got to carve out their own territory of what their opinion is, and don't have space for other people's. And it's such an isayon. It's such a challenge that we're in, because the avoda that we need to do is exactly the opposite. I must be able to encompass the fact that Hashem, you see, just a little bit deeper. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinite, and his mind is infinite. And so we have individuated das. We have individuated das. Someone is trying to call. Sorry. We have all of this individuated das that came down to the world and that comes down constantly into the world. New babies are born all the time. So the das is always coming down into the world. Little points of consciousness. And where do they come from? Well, they come from the infinite one. And when you take all of these points of individuated consciousness, you say, oh my goodness, the mind of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the infinite mind of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, down here in this world, the place where it gets to have a home, is within the consciousness of, I'm not now even just talking about the Jewish people, of 7+ billion people in the world at this point, at this point in time. That's the home for God consciousness in the world, is within human minds, down here in this world right now. And when we think how many millions, billions of people there are in the world, everyone, a whole world unto himself, unto herself, a whole history, all of their thoughts, from the moment that they came into consciousness until the time that it winks out. Everything that's encompassed by everybody's mind. You say it's not even a drop in the bucket of the das, the kedusha, the higher das, the higher awareness, the consciousness that is the infinite mind of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But even just to be attentive to what does it mean, a whole world full of people with the potential to see God, the potential to know God. It only makes us appreciate the greatness of the one from whom all of this consciousness descended, because everything comes from the source from which it emerged, right? I have another few minutes, so I'm just going to read and translate from the second chapter of Sefer Tanya, because these ideas I think are at the root of what we have to focus on, and they're very important. This is the second chapter of Sefer Tanya. Nefesh Hashenis b'Yisrael u'chelek elokam mimal mamish. So the higher soul that's within the Jewish people is called the peace of God from above, mamash. As it says in Bereshis, that God blew into the soul of Adam nishmat chayim, a living soul, a speaking soul, or as we say every day, you blew my soul into me. Now the Zohar Kodesh says, where we say midalei nafach, when someone blows like a glass blower, and the nafach midalei nafach mitochei nafach, when you blow for that which is in yourself, right? You blow from within yourself. Perush mitoch yutu pnim yuto, something that's within oneself, the breath that's within oneself, it goes in and it blows into the form that's allotted to it. When you exhale forcibly, so it's your vitality and your life force, your breath itself, that's coming out and coming forth from you. Kach, al derech mashal. We understand this by way of a parable. Nishmos Yisrael alug machshava. The souls of the Jewish people first were formed within the mind of God. That means to say, he had intention. which are called Bani Bukhari Yisrael, Bani Matem Hashem Elokechem, children. That means children. Perush. This is like from the language of the Kabbalistic works, that children are not primarily extensions of the body of a parent, but they are primarily extensions of the mind of the parent. That's what we have from the deeper works. It means they are extensions of the consciousness of the parent. So just like the Ben Nimshach Mimochav, Kach Kavyachol, Nishmat Kol Ish Yisrael Nimshacha Mimachshavto V'chochmato Yidbarach, so too every single Jewish soul is drawn forth from the thoughts and from the wisdom of God. De'ihu chachim b'lo chachma yediah, elahu v'chochmaso echad. Now, this is from the language of Tikkunei Zohar. He, as the Rambam also says, right? He is the wisdom. He is the knowledge, the knower. He is the knowledge, the knowing, and the knower. That's called the indivisibility of the Infinite One and his mind. He is the knowledge, the knowing, and the knower. Now, the Balatanya is telling us it's not possible for me to be, for you to be, for any of us to be extensions from the mind of the Creator without having a bit of him within us, because there is no divisibility between his thoughts and himself. That's the root of the idea of Chelek Elokam Mimal Mamish, that actually there's the peace of God within all of us. Now, God is indivisible, correct? God is one. So what lies at the heart and at the root of every single Jew? The unity of God that is the absolute essence of every single Jew within us. We are all unified within God at our core, which we'll call the spiritual genetic, the Lev Echad, the Moach Echad, the Das Echad, whatever we want to call it. That is at the root of us, and there is nothing, if there's anything that we could be, that we are, that we could reduce ourselves to, that's it. So we cannot be separated from one another. And willy-nilly, whatever we choose to do to each other, with each other, we are no different than that body, like the Talmud Yerushalmi says, that the person took the knife with the right hand, sliced the fruit, sliced himself by accident, and then the left hand comes, is going to take the knife and slice back the right hand. What kind of an insanity would that be? That's what's at our root, whether we want it to be or not. And wherever we find ourselves manifesting contentiousness amongst ourselves, it's a healing just to remember, I am arguing with my right hand. I'm trying right now during this conflict, in this act of contentiousness, I am only struggling against myself. I'm not struggling against someone other than myself. We are all part of something that is, I don't have to make unity. Unity already is there. The only thing I can do is Peruda comes from trying to pretend that something that is, the unity that lies at the heart of us, isn't there. Just like the sick body could attack itself. But it would only be sickness. And so for us, we must always remember that at the root is already the unity. I don't make unity. I just have to stop running away from it. I think here we're going to stop, except there's one little bit. The Balatanya tells us, of course, there are like myriads of differences and subdivisions within the hierarchy and structure of this totality of souls, which is called Knesset Yisrael. It's true. Eyes are not ears, are not teeth, are not knees, are not toes, etc. It's endless. Of course, there's major differences between the earlier generations, which are called the eyes of the Jewish people, the mind of the Jewish people, and Ikvasat the Mashiach, the heels, which is the generation prior to the revelation of Mashiach, which is considered to be the furthest away from the Moach. Already a little bit the dregs. Of course, they're not identical, just like any part of the body is not identical one part to the next. And nevertheless, and Mikol Makom, Shoresh Kol Nefesh Ruach Neshama Kula, the root of every single soul aspect, all of them, from the highest of levels down to the lowest of them, which goes down to the very, very, very lowest places. We are all coming from the exact same source, and our the very, very root of who we are and what we are is coming from exactly the same place. And even the toenails have emerged from the tipe mochin, from the Father, have emerged from the same source on high. And it's true of all of us, no matter what our functional identities are. So the differences between us are functional. They are just like different systems and tissues within the body. And Bezrat Hashem, I hope that we're going to, not we, like I can say for myself, please help on a daily basis. I look at every other Jew, think about other Jews, speak to other Jews, everybody, everything in the world, but especially my fellow Jews. I should realize they were only cells of a single body, that we should only be in harmony one with the other, that whenever we have contentiousness between us, it's only a symptom of sickness that we must heal ourselves from. Please help us and heal us, that we should only see the unity that's at the root of all of us and lose the illusion of the division. And with that, everyone can go vote today. Or not, if you don't want to vote.
Thank you so much, Yehudis. That was so insightful, brilliant, and the mindfulness. So for us to have, this thought in our minds throughout the day and throughout the ongoing times that we're all going through, but beautiful. Yes,
everything good.
Amen. Toda rabah. Okay, everyone, we're just going to take a little break now, and we're going to have Ori Ryder joining us at 11 o'clock. So see you in about 15 minutes.